All right, good day, everybody. If you can hear us, say something on the chat.
Hello.
Hello.
Wait, I suppose I wasn't supposed to say something.
Yeah, you can say something, but I think we were expecting people on the chat to say something. Like last time, we thought maybe most of you were bots, but hopefully this time they're actually real people.
Yeah, because I paid a few people to show up.
Yeah, we're all definitely paid a few people to show up. Hey, Marcos, thank you for saying hello. Glad to have you on today. So for those of you who are new to this, we are on number 7 of Google Cloud Platform Online Meetup. And this is really, it's just an informal, I really want this to be very much like a meetup, except it's online, makes it very convenient for all of us to just get together, interact, have fun, and just shoot the breeze is what I usually like to say. Shoot the breeze, you like that one?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, yeah. So many of us were actually at Next. Actually, I have David Wynn here. You want to say something about yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is David Wynn, and occasionally I do this online meetup.
Thanks, David. And we have a new guest, Viral. Viral, you want to say something about yourself?
Hey guys, I work with John and David as one of the customer engineers on the team.
Unfortunate for him.
Yeah.
Well, so all 3 of us were actually at Next, and we were really excited. I mean, I was really blown away by the amount of people that showed up. I mean, this is kind of the first big entrance into the Google or into the cloud, industry for Google, and I think for the most part, all the people I talked to were very impressed by the amount of investment we're making into the platform. And many of you might have heard, but we had 100+ announcements, and we're going to go through each and every one of them.
Yep.
No.
Starting with Jonathan.
Starting with
You take care of 100, like 1 through 100, and we'll take care of the other one.
Yeah. So anyway, I mean, the value here is really for you guys to ask us questions. I mean, we could banter back and forth for hours on end, but this is really for you. So I would love for you to interact with us, ask us some good questions. The only thing we don't answer are troubleshooting and technical questions, unless you're doing data flow, which I'll offer David Wynn as your technical support.
Tough to debug over YouTube, though. That's the hard part.
Right.
Chat delay makes it tough.
Yeah. So what I'll actually do is we have just a quick slide that goes over all the announcements, right? We have a lot of different announcements, and this isn't even all of them. This is just a summary of the different infrastructure, security, application development, analytics, ML, and a lot of the partnership aspects, which really make us enterprise ready. And we have a lot of customers that say, you're not enterprise ready. And so what we did was we went out, started partnering with companies like SAP. I mean, I can't even name them all. Accenture. Just a lot of partners that I saw on the conference floor. So
Cloudflare.
Yeah, Cloudflare, right? And it's pretty amazing, right? And to be honest, this is a really unbiased platform for us to talk about. I mean, there's still catching up to do, but I think we just made a huge step in the last month after these announcements to be the market leader and to be the best technology.
Yeah, I mean, we made a lot of different announcements that probably is like a wall of stuff if you try and take it all in at once, whether via slide or via blog post form. I think there's tons of blog posts and stuff going out. So what I was actually hoping today we could talk about some of the favorites that each of us came away with next from. So I say we start with the new guy.
New guy. We got a new guy here. Put him on the spot. Oh, there you go.
So one of my favorite things was data prep. I don't know if you guys saw the demos or played with it at all, David and John, but
I work with data a lot. Does that count?
That does count. That does count.
He's always prepared. I saw a short demo. I mean, my understanding, and you probably have more, is it makes it really easy to visualize and just look at your data without having to put it into some big data tool.
Yeah, definitely. So the whole idea was about 80% of the time the data scientist and analyst sprint is all on kind of getting the data ready for machine learning, and that's where data prep comes in. It's built on top of data flow, So essentially, it gives you a visual layer to interact with your
Like a
data.
basic for your data flow pipeline.
Exactly. So the idea there is that data prep is completely serverless. It's browser based and it's point and click, and it can even do joins. It can support your CSVs and JSONs, and it really gives you a good kind of a layer to stage your data, mix and match it in order to identify the key features, and then push it into TensorFlow or even your big data products. And you can even see the distribution of your data, as well as if there are any data points that are missing, which lets you kind of really fine tune your data quite easily.
So what would be the old way of doing it?
The old way of doing it would be a bunch of scripts to kind of identify anomalies, as well as identify what data has what kind of correlations, or using something like Dataflow, which would be like, hey, you can write your own SDK and do it. But if you don't have a programming bench on your team who actually can go in and use Dataflow and write SDKs for it, you can use the data prep and just kind of review it visually, see what distributions you have, and see what makes sense of it.
Yeah, and it's GUI based, right?
It's completely completely UI. It's browser. It's literally like using Google Sheets, but with a lot of added incentives on top.
Okay, yeah, just Google data prep, and I think it should probably show up as one of the first links on Google search.
And one of the nice things about data prep is it takes care of some of the like mildly annoying things which you have to do with data preparation. Say, for instance, you have if you have a bunch of data coming in and all of them are like JSON objects, then you have to write this annoying script to parse the JSON and then use your data. Data prep takes care of all of that before and help you visualize all of that without having to write anything. So those are some of the advantages of data prep.
Yeah, and I think this technology is really just part of some of the investments we're doing to make it really simple for even non-developers to use our tools. I mean, I'm a GUI type of person, and having the point and click and being able to visualize your data in a couple clicks, I think is really powerful for data scientists who might not have the deep programming background.
Cool.
Yeah, so David, you're up.
That was 1 out of 100?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So let's see. Probably one of my favorite things that was announced at Next this year is probably the identity aware proxy, which has been GA'd now. Yeah. So the idea behind the identity aware proxy is that it's sort of the first public release that we've made to help publicize beyond Corp. So many people know that Google's security infrastructure does not require you to VPN if you're on a device and accessing the corporate resources from an untrusted network. Instead, we have a number of different other mechanisms that don't require a VPN. And the identity aware proxy is one of the things that allows you to do that we've made public so that you can start implementing that type of infrastructure for your own use. And the idea behind it is that it's a proxy that will take care of the authentication and authorization. So you can very simply declare, I want only X people to be able to look at this, only these emails or these groups or this domain, even if you want to go that far. And the proxy sits in front of your load balancer in front of your application. So that way your application doesn't have to know about it. It can still get information about who is coming in the headers, but the proxy itself will bounce people who are not authorized and basically be sort of like the guardian at the door for your application. And that way it becomes a lot easier to manage a lot of the security overhead. And so I know a lot of people, myself included, were really interested in this just because security is one of those things you should really do more. And it always comes as an afterthought.
Yeah.
Even I'm always amazed that even in a bunch of best practice lists that you might read about application development, software development, they'll go through this whole shabam about how you should build your software correctly, and it should be immutable artifacts, and it should be deployable and like on push and everything else. And then it gets to the last one, and it's like, oh yeah, and of course it should all be secure. You should think about that at the beginning, but that's not. I'm amazed that even on the best practice list, they write this last. So this is fortunately something that is very easy to set up, is free in Google Cloud Platform, and helps you take care of that without having to do a lot of extra authorization kind of stuff on your back end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah, just to add to that is also that if you're building internal apps, and let's say if you're using App Engine or even Load Balancer, the idea would be that if you have an HR app versus finance app, like the level of ease with which you can do authorization is amazing, because guess what? You already have those email groups, like let's say HR@yourcompany.com or finance@yourcompany.com. So just with the push of a button, you can set those authorization levels, not just from outside, but even within your organization. And you get two-factor, because since it uses G Suite authentication, if you have two-factor there, you get two-factor along with that.
Yeah. Howard says he doesn't hear anything. Is it just Howard, or is anybody hearing anything?
We have a test machine sitting to our right. Should we put on the headphones and see
Yeah,
if we
it
can
was
hear
working
ourselves?
for me, Howard. I don't know if someone else on the chat can verify that we're hearing things. Yeah, maybe. Sorry, Howard.
All good.
It's
All
okay.
good.
All right. Looks like Howard forgot to plug in his headphones. Yeah. All right. Well, no, that's really cool. I think it was surprising. I didn't think that identity-aware proxy was going to get so much attention, but yeah, absolutely, it got a lot of attention. And after seeing a demo, it really is like, what do you call those things? Not a checkbox, but a slider.
A slider.
A slider.
It is a slider.
It's a slider, and it's still one click of a button. Really easy to use, and immediately you provide security for your apps. So I guess it's my turn.
Mhm.
You know, my favorite one, and maybe just because I like free things, is the free tier we announced.
Ooh.
Yeah, free.
Nice.
Who doesn't want free? I mean, come on. And so we recently announced a free tier, which is always free. There's no bounded limit as far as I know. I think it's a F1 micro instance. You can, you know, a blog like mine, which gets maybe one visit a couple months.
Yeah. You got to make
It can
sure that
handle
it's
it.
still running.
Yeah,
right?
I got to make sure it's running. So, you know, having this micro instance is powerful because it lets you learn the technology within the Google Cloud Platform, show you how easy it is, and you get it for free. You also get some amount of storage for free, which I don't really remember. Oh, perfect. Yeah, so I saw your message, Calametta. We will definitely do that. So yeah, so free. I don't know. I know Amazon has a free tier as well, but I think it's bounded. I think it's bounded by a year. Any of you guys know?
You know, I can't say
Okay.
I've studied up on
Yeah.
it very closely.
Yeah. But I mean, for us, it was important for us to announce this free tier because we really think that we do have the best technology. And with this F1 micro, I mean, I was already doing really cool things with it. It's not, you're not going to run big data on it, but it's going to let you really test the power and the scalability of our platform. So that's my number one, because I like free stuff, and I picked up everything that was free at the conference floor.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback off of that, like you get about $300 of credit when you sign up for GCP, and that used to be valid only for 60 days. Now I think the period is extended to 12 months.
Mhm.
So you actually get it for a year to use those $300. So you don't have, it's not time bound, that once you create an account within 60 days, all your free stuff goes away.
Mhm.
Except the instance, of course, that stays regardless.
Right. So yeah, I guess there's a $300 credit that everyone gets. You get a year to use that, and you can use anything. You can use our most highly powerful, scalable products and use $300 in a couple minutes, or you could spread that across the year and use it. But then there's also another tier that is just completely free forever.
Yep.
Cool. Yes, Peter.
So thank you for pointing that out, Peter. We are improving our engineering efforts from the audio perspective here every week. We're making it work.
Yeah, this is a grassroots effort.
Mm.
If we are already limited to 3 months, do we get anytime retroactive? 3 months?
Yeah, like he's saying that if 2 months maybe, or maybe they got a month of extension, but if the account is already created,
Mhm.
can they actually now gain an extension for 12 months now that we do that? I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but
Not anymore. That's my guess.
Yeah, it depends on how we implemented it, right? Which is a detail.
yeah. If you want to put your email address in there, I think we would be happy to we would be happy to get back to you after just reaching out to a few people internally on how they have set it up.
Yeah.
Big sign of trust, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my other favorite things, moving on, if you guys want to, was cross-project networking. And it was really amazing to see Spotify up there to kind of share how they use cross-project networking. And one of the really cool things that I walked away from there was how easily it lets you control resources at a high level within Google Cloud, and also have the shared common infrastructure of networking and security.
Can you talk about the use case? I mean,
Absolutely.
yeah, like in what scenario would someone use cross-project
Absolutely.
networking?
So I'll share what Spotify shared. Like every single microservice that you host is a project inside Google Cloud. So just to actually step back a little bit, a project is nothing but a container of resources that can be easily tracked and built, as well as can be assigned quotas. So it's kind of the single unit module that you can put all your administrative policies on. So now let's say that if you have a whole bunch of microservices or SOA services, each service, like a web server or a recommendation service, could be a project of its own, which is managed by that particular squad or that particular team. And you can assign quotas, you can track the usage and let them kind of do their own innovation within that box. But at the same time, the networking that is kind of dependent on cross communication of these different services and different projects can be administered by overall your technical operations team, like network security administrators. So there you have like a shared network, global organizational level policies that can get stipulated, while the individual projects, the teams can completely fully operate under that.
So my favorite thing which to come out of Google Cloud Next was the DLP API. DLP API stands for the Data Loss Prevention API.
This is also Balaji, by the way, who has decided to crash our virtual meetup in person, which I didn't think was possible.
Yeah.
But yes, I'm sorry. Go on with the DLP API.
Okay, so the Data Loss Prevention API. So what it allows you to do is to detect and classify or redact 40 plus elements of sensitive information, like your driver's license number, passport number, date of birth, medical information, and things like that, in text as well as images. So it is actually becoming very vital for customers, because especially with the kind of data breaches which are going on, customers are becoming liable for that. And especially if in the context of GDPR regulation, which is coming out in Europe, going into effect in March 2018, this will become more important. And increasingly, customers are buying insurance to protect themselves against this kind of breaches. So if you are implementing something like DLP API to protect information and keep PII information very limited, that actually probably reduces the kind of premium you pay on insurance. So that is essentially translating directly to money for customers. So that is what, and especially people who saw the demos of the DLP API were pretty blown away with the kind of results we had. Actually, there are videos of it on the Google Next YouTube channel.
Yeah. No, I saw a demo of it. It was very, very, I mean, it was incredible what it could do. So especially if you're in security, compliance, regulatory industries, I think our DLP will be a very powerful tool to reduce any compliance, security, regulatory concerns.
Definitely.
I actually want to go back to Viral's point about cross-project networking,
Yeah.
Because this was one of my favorite things that we're finally getting out there as GA as well. Because a lot of people, compared to other clouds, we have this concept of a project which doesn't quite exist in them in the same way. So for us, we get the question a lot, what's the right way to build out an architecture inside of this project focused paradigm? And some people will take it at the highest level possible, and they'll say, we have a dev project, a test project, and a prod project. The resources are pretty much isolated and they don't need to talk to each other, and that can be great. We have, on the small side of things, developers who are building hobby projects or things on the weekends, where they know that this little toy app may not grow very much, so they can put it in its own project and it stays relatively contained. But in both of those cases, the groups of isolation, relatively speaking, are at the project boundary. So when we're shifting to a paradigm, what we're trying to do is introduce new features that allow you to not only work at the dev test prod or at the specific project level, but if you want to break out into a distributed architecture with a microservice per project, which gets you a lot of benefits, frankly, in terms of administration and what you can do with it. Cross-project networking is really one of the first things that we are releasing that really facilitates that collaboration, so that all of your resources from all of your different microservices, if you want to put them in different projects, can finally start talking to each other. And I suppose it's also worth mentioning, because I get asked a lot, how do we do VPC?
Oh, I was just going to ask you that, because that was one of the questions.
Yeah. So,
and how does that differ from the way that VPC works with XPN?
Right. So I will once again start by saying I am not a VPC expert.
Yep.
But generally speaking, the way that networking works inside of GCP is that you create a virtual network with a subnet inside of it, and we have no restrictions on what machines that you can put in there that can talk to each other across this network. It's all software defined, and in that sense, it doesn't matter what zone, what data center, what region, none of that makes any difference. So if you want to create an HA cluster, and if you want to have a machine in Asia, a machine in Europe, and a machine in the US, you just attach them all to the same network. And there is no need to do any sort of fancy hooking up and defining boundaries and all kinds of other things that you may have to do with other providers. Instead, you just plug it in and it works. And if you attach a global load balancer on top of it, it will also do the work at the very front end where it says, all right, is this client accessing this application from Belgium? Or are they accessing from Tokyo? Or are they accessing from Weehawken? And it will route them to the nearest instance of that application appropriately without you having to do anything. But yeah, the XPN is one of these really exciting things that starts allowing for these different types of architectures and different types of layouts.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of that, the true power of having that VPC that spans across regions is because you don't have to build any networking between different Google regions today. So you don't need a VPN gateway between, let's say, US West and US East to facilitate that communication on your RFC 1918. It just works out of the box. So it's the same, like I think another good announcement around the same lines was private cloud interconnect. So now you can actually have your hybrid cloud, but not just over VPN, but also you can connect your data centers directly into Google Cloud, and we'll meet you at one of the POP locations. So I think the AWS term for that is direct connect. So it's something similar to that exactly. And the idea would be, let's say if you have 4 regions, with a traditional cloud provider, you would have to have 4 private cloud interconnects. But here you can get away with just 2, one for live and one for, let's say, redundancy. Since all these regions are already connected with each other, you don't need 4 cloud private interconnects. And that backbone, really, that's where it starts really trying to make sense and really starts giving out your incentives.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of cloud providers will say, hey, our network is the best and we have fiber all across the world and all these great things. But I don't know of any other cloud provider that actually shows the actual fiber lines between the regions and between geographies, right?
Yeah.
So, that's something that Google has. And if you, I can show you the slide later, but no one does that, and it's because no one wants to. That's my belief, right? Usually,
and also because no one owns that fiber.
Right. Yeah, a lot of it is shared, and because Google has 1 billion users and 8 billion across all the 8 different apps that serve 1 billion users each, we have to build this fiber, and it just so happens that we can leverage that fiber for our Google Cloud Platform customers.
Yeah. Plus, we already shark-proofed it.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I got a meetup coming up to talk about networking, and I have a really cool video that shows
the practical aspects of networking.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, it's shark proof. Just give you a little bit of a hint. There were some sharks that tried to eat through the fiber, and nope, not gonna happen.
The undersea fiber.
Yeah,
not the land fiber. This is not a Sharknado situation.
No.
I could see where you're going, Balaji, but no, this is specifically the underwater cable.
That was an incredible video.
Yeah. So just to even add one of the points on the VPCs was, so I think Google Cloud is the only cloud provider that lets you expand your subnets. So once you allocate, let's say a /20 and you go ahead with it, and then you're running out of IP capacity, you could actually re-provision non-contiguous IP space and contiguous IP space, and you can expand your subnets without having to kind of do a major rework on your VPCs.
That's really cool.
That is cool. Networking is not even my forte, and I can tell that that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I come from an on-premise environment, and I think a lot of people take for granted how difficult software-defined networking is. I mean, to say, hey, I'm going to have a network span across the globe and keep it RF, 1918?
Yeah,
I mean, it's not trivial, right? But it sounds really easy, and it's really easy to explain, but really difficult to do. You know, good thing Google engineers are smart enough to do that, and all we do is tell people how great it is. So,
do you guys want to continue down the network theme? I think we have one more.
One big one? What's the big one?
Do we have a big one?
The internal load balancer went in GA.
Oh, did that go
that
GA?
was-
Oh, that's
yeah.
great.
Internal load balancing. Okay, so no more spinning up Nginx and a lot of other random little.
I presume many people will still spin up Nginx
Yeah,
for other
well, I mean,
purposes.
yeah.
So this particular load balancer is really kind of awesome. It's based on maglev internal load balancing principle. So that, I think, research paper that was made available pretty recently, or I don't know exactly when, but
It was
the
a white
idea
paper.
is,
Yeah.
the idea is it actually is a software-defined load balancing again, but it's a distributed software system that runs on bunch of commodity Linux servers. And it's the load balancer is not a proxy. It actually does load balancing at the IP layer, and just like any other load balancer, it sits between the routers and the servers. And the routers kind of use equal cost multipath to kind of shower the packets out to the maglev machines, and then they use consistent hashing in order to kind of route traffic back to your backend nodes. And this comes in really handy because once you have the front-end load balancer, and like how David said, it routes it to the right region closest to your customer, then the front-end service has to make calls to the back-end service. And if you have a big cluster, and let's say you're a ticketing service and you have like Ticketmaster and you have 4,000 requests or 5,000 requests coming in during peak loads, your backend scales with auto scaling, and this load balancer scales with your backend because it's software defined and just a bunch of Linux machines. You can add and remove capacities, and all of that kind of comes out of box just by using that load balancer.
Yeah, I think the true differentiator with the internal load balancer is that it scales. I mean,
it just works.
It just works. Yeah, I mean, I think where we win from a tech perspective is scale and performance. Yeah. And I say this, you know, I'm careful to say this, but we don't do it because we want to. It's because we had to, right? Like I said before, supporting 1 billion users is not easy, and therefore every infrastructure component that we built had to scale, you know, to millions and billions of people, you know, in a instant, because you don't know, maybe, you know, One Direction is going to have their next greatest hit pop up on YouTube, and suddenly, you know, 3 million girls are clicking on YouTube watching that video. We need to scale.
One Direction split up because Zayn left One Direction.
Oh, yeah. You got to keep up with this, Jonathan.
Sorry.
Pretty sure Zayn is his own phenomenon now.
Okay, I'm not
One
keeping
Direction
is
going in 3 directions.
Okay, apparently everyone here knows more about One Direction than I do.
I'll be honest, I did not know that. So I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Stick
with
I'm
it.
Sorry. So, I mean,
Cool.
it looks like everyone's really quiet here. Is all this just so interesting that you're just digesting all of this, or are you all playing Overwatch?
Oh my gosh. Is anyone playing Overwatch? I would love to play Overwatch with you.
So, anyway, hey, you know, we got smart people here ready to answer questions.
So
Balaji wants to make another cameo.
One of the
here.
cool videos and the cool presentations was the presentation on Titan.
Titan.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
So that's actually one of our
That's a video
chips,
game,
actually.
right?
Huh?
The video game?
That's
No.
Titanfall.
That's Titanfall. Wrong one. So Titan is a chip which is actually built into a hardware and peripherals, which manages security at that hardware layer. So that was kind of cool. And the chip is so small that during the presentation of that, the director of technical infrastructure was actually wearing it as an earring.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
So
That's
this
awesome.
actually kind of feeds into how we look at security. We are not just looking at security from external standpoint. We are also looking at it from an internal standpoint, where you cannot. So unless both peripherals and your hardware servers are Titan enabled, they cannot talk to each other. So we are actually enabling security right at that level. So
That's good. Yeah. I mean, and we build all our hardware, like you mentioned. So.
Yeah. And in the same vein of security, the key management server also went live. So
Yeah.
previously you could bring your own keys for encrypting your data on Google Cloud. Now the key management server allows you to manage and rotate your keys as well using the key management server.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah,
cool.
that the Titan announcement was pretty cool. Even I agree with you on that. The whole notion that you have a hardware, you have a BIOS that boots up the hardware, and it actually checks that, hey, is this my right home? Like, am I actually booting up something which belongs that I should be doing? And Titan actually talks back and verifies the identity and the provenance of that particular hardware in order to kind of say, okay, yeah, this is good to boot up.
Cool. So Peter,
Cool.
Cloud Spanner.
I can't believe we forgot Spanner.
Well, no, I
No,
mean,
we
it was on
haven't
my
forgotten.
list.
We
It
put on
was
the
on my
network.
list. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys each had a list of like 7 things. That was a
No,
lot of
Spanner
things to get
was
through.
like on the top,
Spanner, yeah.
but you guys were talking too much.
Oh, that's fair.
And just out of respect, like you gotta respect the network before you get to Spanner, because
yeah,
without network,
That's true.
Spanner wouldn't be possible
Yeah.
because of the footprint and the 3 redundant fibers that go into every single region. So you gotta pay respect where it's due.
All right, that's
So
fair.
I'll let Viral talk about Spanner because he had to give a little pitch to someone who didn't know what the cap theorem was.
Hey,
I'm not saying you, David. I'm
hey,
just
why'd
saying.
you look at me?
So there was, we had a couple people. I mean, Spanner was one of our biggest announcements. It's our database that we use to serve ads, and obviously needs to be fast, highly available, consistent, and so Viral did a really good job of explaining kind of what Spanner is, and it's in beta, right? Still in beta?
Banner is currently in beta.
Okay.
Yeah,
It will be released to GA soon.
Yeah.
It's also currently regional,
Yeah, it
and
is
right.
regional.
cross-regional support will be released later this year.
Yeah, so Spanner is pretty awesome in a way. Is that it's the first relational database that just scales across regions. So at a high level, you write something in California, read something out of, let's say, New York or even Europe, and it's exactly what you wrote. So the idea here is that you get consistency and availability on a relational database with strong ACID transactions. So that's something that's kind of unheard of. And today, if you are sharding your MySQL databases, or you are, let's say, at 2 terabytes or 3 terabytes of capacity on your SQL databases, then Spanner would be the right choice for you. And going back to like the quick thing on the cap theorem, and the idea was that, hey, like Spanner is highly available and consistent, so did it actually break cap theorem? Well, not in its true sense. It just may push the availability to 5 nines by being cross-regionally available. So it's close to, like, as of giving you a feel that, okay, it is kind of fully consistent and available. But given a choice, when availability gets compromised, Spanner always chooses consistency over availability.
Yeah. It's kind of like the definition of real time. How real time is real time exactly when you get down to the technicals of it? Because some systems are expecting real time data and they have flex windows of 30 seconds or 60 seconds.
Exactly.
Others have flexibility on the millisecond time frame, but they may all still consider themselves to be real time.
So typical speeds of replication, Peter asked. I want to say tens of milliseconds within the region. I remember reading a stat. So right now it's only regional. I want to say it's within tens of milliseconds.
I don't know offhand.
Yeah. But we have our workhorse doing a search for you right now, Peter.
Oh, we have a workhorse?
Yeah, right here.
Man.
Apology.
You know what we need is more people, I think.
I think we have enough people here. This room is getting stuffy. So Peter, we're looking that up for you. But that's a typical question. And obviously with the global, once the global comes out, it is a little bit higher because it has to go across
The C?
the sea.
Yes.
Also, I think one other cool thing about Spanner is how easily you can scale up. So let's say today you start with a 50 node and you want to go to 100 nodes. It's just a matter of logging into the console and just changing a number, and it just gets done. If you want to change your SQL schemas, you can do that again without having to bring down the database or anything. You can just use the DDL and just go ahead and change your schemas.
Yep. So this is going to be interesting, I think. Yeah, I think a lot of people want to use this, and I don't even think we've put out a price yet for Spanner. Have we?
We have.
No, we
Oh,
have.
yeah. Oh, okay.
It's
Yeah.
90 cents an hour with I think 30 cents per gig per month,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and you need
But
a
it's-
minimum of 3 nodes.
It's worth noting that node in this case is not a machine. Node is just a unit
unit
of
of
compute
compute.
power that you
Got it.
Yeah.
essentially it's all an API. So we
It's
much
so-
like data store, we handle all of the infrastructure and all of the implementation and making sure it's up and running and all that other good stuff. And you just code against the API or write to it and read from it with SQL. And that's the interface point.
Okay. And you just request nodes through the API interface.
Yeah, or
you
in the
need
UI.
Or in the
API or
UI.
UI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doesn't
But
matter.
the nodes are somewhat equivalent to scaling out horizontally. It's just that it's worth noting that they don't correspond to virtual machines.
Yeah,
one-to-one.
yeah, yeah. I think, yeah. So I mean, that's truly managed. Then I know
Yes.
when people say managed, it can vary in terms of how managed is it. So for example, data flow is truly managed. There's actually zero infrastructure. Whereas with Dataproc, we do call it managed because we take care of security, patching, updates, but you still actually spin up compute engine instances, which you do have access to, which you are charged for,
Right.
which I don't think is considered fully managed. It's managed, but it's not completely abstracted from you.
Dataflow actually does something similar to that. It does spin up machines under the hood.
on the
but
back end, but you don't even see it in your console.
You can look it up
Oh,
actually.
okay. Interesting.
But things like BigQuery, things like
Yeah,
Data
that's
Store,
fully, yeah.
all that stuff's fully managed in the
Right.
sense that you can't get at the underlying internals of it if you wanted to.
Right, right. Yeah, I had a really interesting late meeting with the customer startup, and they're all developers. They say, hey, we want fully managed everything. And so it's just consistent theme of we want everything to be managed for us.
Mhm.
On Spanner.
I think, Peter, so I think that's a good question with regard to tooling on Spanner. I think currently it's early days. So there isn't a lot out there to fully understand what's deep diving into it.
Yeah.
I can assure you as part of the GA process, we'll probably have metrics going into Stackdriver that give you different insights into how well the cluster is performing, and probably a couple other key details. But that's what the beta period to GA period is for, is to firm up all those SLAs and stuff like that.
Yeah. I would be surprised if Spanner is not one of our kind of top priority technologies that we're going to be focusing on going forward.
It is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very different.
Definitely. So one of the common questions I get on field is about, definitely Spanner tends to be a little on the expensive side as against the commodity SQL databases. So I often kind of challenge people to think a little beyond just an apples to apples comparison, to also see what is the database administrative cost on sharding your MySQLs, and what is the complexity overhead that your developers have to take because of that into account in order to put a price point on comparison.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that is just fair to that you would compare Spanner just to another SQL database.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it really simplifies your infrastructure, it really simplifies your database administrator's life and also your developer's life.
Mhm. Right. But yeah, I mean, you are paying for that value add of
Exactly.
globally available, horizontally
Exactly.
scalable MySQL.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you do walk away with savings on that if you combine all of that cost together.
Right.
Never mind savings on like Advil and not having to
Exactly.
hold the pager and various
Exactly.
other things.
Exactly.
Generic Advil. It's not that expensive.
Cool.
There's a generic Advil? Ibuprofen. There we go.
My wife's a pharmacist. She would know.
Uh,
She knows all the generics. So
Should we switch gears to machine learning?
Yeah, let's do ML for a couple minutes. I don't usually like to hold people for more than good 30, 45 minutes because people tend to drop off.
Yeah, we'll end with ML.
Yeah,
let's do that.
ML is our big thing right now.
Mm-hmm.
What's
So
the coolest
ML,
thing that
I
you
think-
guys saw?
I mean, the video intelligence API definitely for me.
Hands down.
I mean,
That would have been mine as well.
okay.
Um,
So we're all aligned there.
yeah.
For once,
Well, I mean, it turns out none of us are data scientists.
it's hard
And
to be a data scientist.
And so there's sort of this spectrum in terms of providing machine learning services of, do we help people who have no background in machine learning? In that sense, we provide these APIs, the Vision API, which had an update that was released as part of Next as well, with an enhanced model and a couple of other things. Vision API, speech to text API, stuff like that. Things that even I could use without very much effort. But on the other end of the spectrum, we're also supporting some cutting edge research with TensorFlow and making it easier to train and run your TensorFlow models inside of GCP as well.
Yeah.
And that I believe end of the spectrum got a boost with Cloud ML Engine going GA.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
Is that a question?
that was.
That is-
I believe
yes.
we released it GA. Didn't
Yes,
we?
we did.
Yes. Okay.
And that's by far the coolest thing. If you're today using TensorFlow, training TensorFlow, and thinking of deploying TensorFlow and the entire ETL, I would heavily recommend looking at Cloud ML Engine. It simplifies your life. It lets you host TensorFlow models without having to worry about scalability. It even lets you do A/B testing with TensorFlow.
Yeah.
Like your custom-built TensorFlow training model.
Right.
So it's definitely something that you should look into rather than hosting TensorFlow yourself.
So back to the video intelligence API. I mean, what it does is it lets you basically search through video. Let's say you wanted to find videos with cats or dogs. I could just type in dog and it'll look through a set of videos to find if there was a dog in the video. But also, I know I'm working with a lot of surveillance companies who are actually looking at video intelligence API in order to uncover and detect things like fire or robberies and things like that, and actually act on it. So, for example, if it did detect a fire, it would launch the sprinkler system. If it detected a dog or something like that, it would, I don't know, throw out a treat. Just be able to act on what it sees in the video. I think that's kind of the next generation of value add of machine learning and the relationship with video.
One thing that's worth mentioning about the video API as well is that we did not just take the image API and run it on every frame in the video.
Which would be interesting.
Well, I mean, some people have asked,
Yeah.
and insofar as we talk about implementation, I can say with confidence that's not the way that we structured this one. We're actually using the video itself rather than breaking it apart into frames to derive some of these different insights.
Yeah, so column, yep, video intelligence API is still in private beta. There is a sign-up form that you can fill out. I've asked, even though I work at Google, I still got to fill out that form.
Yeah, they didn't give us that one. They don't trust us with
Yeah.
that unless we give them good reason.
I get no shortcut, and maybe you might get a shortcut if you work for, I don't know. They're kind of picky about who they want to open it up to, but just fill out the form on the Video Intelligence API page and let me know if you don't find it for some reason.
Cool.
Yeah. One thing about TensorFlow I had to say is that a lot of people say TensorFlow is very difficult, but one thing that I've realized is I think Google's really trying to democratize ML by abstracting the difficulties underlying TensorFlow. So for example, we have this new package called tfcontrib.learn, and that makes it really easy to write useful, very useful code to train data on. And that's something that I've been playing with on the side, and something I would definitely suggest you if you just have a slight interest in TensorFlow and don't want to go through the coding and the deep mathematics.
So I'll touch up on that, Colin, a little bit on the Advanced Solution Lab. I'm assuming that's what you're referring to. So there are a few options there. So if you are a company who basically wants to learn TensorFlow, there is a boot camp which you can take for 4 weeks for 5 people within your team who can come to Google, sit out of our Mountain View campus and go through the training on the advanced on TensorFlow. And there's a couple of other options too, which is Cloud Plan and Cloud Start. And Cloud Plan, we'll start with Cloud Start. So Cloud Start is kind of a 2-week engagement with Google, which is on site for you, where our professional services organization kind of brainstorms with you and builds a small prototype based on what you're looking to develop in ML. And the Cloud Plan option under Advanced Solution Lab is mainly for how you would do CI/CD, ETL, and keep your pipeline running on TensorFlow, and kind of helps you with deployment of models on TensorFlow. So depending on the kind of engagement that you're looking for, you can probably choose one or the other. And I think there's also a competition now, which is a startup competition that we just announced. It's in partnership with Google Ventures, Greylock, Sequoia, I think Data Collective, Emergence, and also Anderson Horowitz, a bunch of VC companies. The idea is that if you are a machine learning startup who's already using a lot of machine learning, you can kind of fill up a form online and sign up for it. I think there is a deadline for that, and I believe it's April 10th, but please feel free to check it out. But they have some really cool prizes. It's like, I think the first prize for the finalist is like 500K investment opportunity from one of the top VC firms. And I think you get $1 million of credit for GCP. And if you're a finalist, regardless of whether you win or not, I think you get about $200,000 of credit for Google Cloud.
Maybe I should compete.
Do you think you would win?
No.
Okay, well.
Absolutely not.
Do you think you would learn something?
Yes.
There you go.
Well, then
That's-
maybe it's a good idea.
That's good enough.
We should end on one of your top ones. Kaggle.
Kaggle. So many people may be familiar with Kaggle, but Kaggle was announced as an acquisition for us. At Next, Kaggle hosts a lot of different data science competitions, and basically what we're trying to do is just make sure that the community stays vibrant and alive and innovating in so much as possible. So it's not like they're going to become a hexagon or do anything like that. It's we're trying to foster that sense of creative exploration and competition among people and support people who are doing that. So that was one of the things that I thought was really cool. That we did.
That was huge.
Yeah.
I mean, that brings in a lot of knowledge and just industry knowledge into Google. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen with that. I mean, just unbounded opportunity there.
Unbounded?
Unbounded.
Okay.
Sky's the limit.
No, there's no limit.
Oh, there's no limit.
Yeah, there's no limit.
The limit is however many cores we can devote to training this machine learning model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So right now we are 48 minutes in. It's been a very productive discussion. We'll sit back for a couple minutes and see if anyone else has any questions. But thank you again for joining. Make sure to share this with your friends and share this with your colleagues. We'd love to get more interaction and more feedback on how we can make this more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk, but really the goal is to respond to you guys.
Exactly. Because I see these guys every day, and
Unfortunately. Yeah.
If you guys also have feedback on if you need any deep dive sessions for the next upcoming meetups, feel free to let us know about those too.
Yep. We have a lot of cool things coming up in the pipeline. We've got a lot of customers on the pipeline.
Do we have any firm topics coming up in the pipeline, or is it all still in the works?
No, there's a lot of, dates are to be determined, but topics have definitely been decided. Actually, next week is supposed to do a machine learning one. What, when, and where to use what? I think that was the topic.
Is that the 5 Ws?
Where, when, and how to use which machine learning. I forgot the title. It was a very creative title. A lot of different, with machine learning, there's just so many different technologies, and it is a question on how do you use which one.
I hope I'm not doing that one.
You're not.
Yeah, thank you.
If Google can restrict the login page to enter the domain.
On really sad news, Hollywood is rebooting The Matrix.
Hollywood is rebooting The Matrix already?
Jeez.
Should we have a limit on when we reboot movies?
We should.
I think we have a question. So
Nearly 20 years. So.
Oh, God.
All right. When IAP configured for Google Apps domain, it would be really great if Google can restrict the Google login page to enter only domain email.
would that matter though, Nijin? Because anyways, if you enter some other third party, like let's say gmail.com domain rather than my company name like xyz.com at xyz.com, the person is not going to be successful in getting access to the app anyways. Is there am I getting you right, or is it something else? Am I missing you? And then shows yes, exactly. So you would say that it should not even let him click sign in if the domain is something which is completely different.
I think there's also something to consider, which there's a security article I was reading not too long ago that was talking about sort of the fine distinction between what signals you give potential attackers as to what is a potential success.
Exactly.
So you actually in this case may not even want to signal,
yeah,
hey, you can only accept emails from this domain, because you want to make sure hackers have no direction at all in terms of which which way they want to go. So if they know which domain they need to spoof, that's one thing. But if they think they could log in with anything under the sun, that would be another.
Yep.
That's a good point.
That's a good
I guess
point.
just giving attackers as little information as possible about their target.
You want them, aside from the fact, like you want to give them the minimal signal possible.
Yes.
So good question, though.
Username or password may be incorrect.
Exactly. That's why your username or password may be incorrect, as frustrating as it may be. Grr.
So, all right. Well, great questions. Thank you again. We're going to go on mute. And until next time, have a great rest of the week.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.